Hello, my name is Ed Merriman, and I'm going to discuss with you today the COM Activity Mapper. The COM Activity Mapper is an Excel spreadsheet that uses macros to use the COM layer with TruePlanning in order to allow users to map from TruePlanning activities to their own entities. It could be their own activities, for example, CES activities. It could be color of money categories. It could be WBS elements. Really what we have is a facility for mapping from TruePlanning activities to whatever you need to map to. As I said, it's an Excel file. It can be copied, sent, and it does use macros to access the TruePlanning COM layer. Just a quick note on macros. You will want to make sure they're enabled. In most situations, when you start the Excel file, that is the COM Activity Mapper, you'll be asked to allow macros. If you're doing this quite a bit and you would like to just always have the macros run, you can go to the Windows button, the top left, Excel options, the Trust Center on the left side, and then the Trust Center button, and then on the left pane, the macro settings. And you can select, for convenience, the Enable All Macros. I have that selected. It is the least secure. It will allow all macros to run under any circumstance. So if you're doing this quite a bit, you may choose to do this. If you're not doing it very much, it's safer to just allow the macros to be used with each launch of the spreadsheet. Cancel out of that. So to start with, the Activity Mapper has several tabs. The first one, the instructions. This will walk you through using the Activity Mapper. It's part of the file. It's always there. Click on the tab and you can see the instructions for how to use it. The things that I'll cover in this tutorial will generally represent what's in the instruction set. The project we're going to use is the UCAS project. A quick note, if you look, I have two copies, the original and then this print too. I've done that because I would like to flip between the COM Mapper and TruePlanning while going through the tutorial, but there's a limitation. You're not allowed to have the same project open through COM and through TruePlanning. So what I've done is I've made a copy. This will allow me to have the same project open. It's really two projects. So we'll open up the original. I'll use the print 2 in the COM Mapper. And what we're going to see here is it's an unmanned aerial vehicle. It's been calculated. We have a total cost here of $57 trillion. And it's made up of assemblies, systems, hardware components, purchase goods, and software components. It's a nice sample project. We go back to the COM macro. When you want to actually start using the functionality, you want to click the Add-ins ribbon. Go to the TruePlanning menu, and you'll see a set of options. I'm going to run through them quickly. Set connection. That should be used the first time you first start the Excel file, and it basically will locate available connections you have. Most people will have one connection. You can click OK. You're good to go. Some of our users who work with a centralized database will do something we call briefcasing. Briefcasing is having a local database on your computer, and this allows you to use TruePlanning when you're not attached to a network that gives you access to your central database. So in this situation, if you're using the Excel COM file, you may need to choose which connection you're going to use, whether you're going to connect to the local database or the centralized database. Both will work. But you would, in this case, you choose the connection that's appropriate for what you're doing right now. So the next menu is Get TruePlanning Activities. We'll talk about that. Select Projects. These are all used to perform the actions of mapping between the TruePlanning activities and your own set of activities. Send to ACIT, we'll cover that, basically allowing you to take the results that you've done for this mapping and send it to ACIT. Help, about box settings, modify language. The dialogues and any sort of descriptive information is displayed is pulled from this sheet. You can look at the bottom. It has a sheet on the in the file, and this would allow you to alter the text being displayed to users, thus allowing it to be defined or set up for people who speak different languages, French, German. So to start the process, let's take a look at the activity mapping sheet. This is the sheet where you are going to set up the actual mapping. You're going to define your set of activities, and you're going to define the relationship to the TruePlanning activities. Let me just unfreeze this so I can make this a little bit easier to see. Let's take a look here. Apparently it wants, there you go, sorry. So if you look at this column A, what we have is a WBS CES mapping. I believe we got this from ACIT, one of their default WBSs. It is indentured. It doesn't make a difference. It's for us to see. It doesn't have any impact. But what we have is a set of names in each of the rows. And these, for this example, represent our elements that we're going to map to. So, for example, development engineering, production engineering and planning, prep, tooling, and this is our set of entities that we want to generate cost or hours for using some, all, multiple TruePlanning activities. So to do this, we also need a list of TruePlanning activities. And there are actually two ways to get that. We go back to our Add-ins tab. The first way is the Get TruePlanning Activities. And what this is going to do is it's going to go to the catalogs that TruePlanning has installed, and it's going to get a list of all of the activities for all of the installed catalogs. So to show you, let's delete. I deleted too much earlier. Let's get rid of this. Delete. So you can see I've deleted all of the activities. I now come to Get TruePlanning Activities, and you'll see at the bottom the status bar is telling us what it's doing. What it's done is it's gone out and it has retrieved all of the activities for all of the catalogs that are installed in TruePlanning. The order is actually alphabetical by catalog and then by display order for each cost object. So assembly is the first one. And if you look at an assembly cost object, you'll see that the first activity displayed is requirement definition and analysis, and system design, and so on. So if you'd like to get a complete list of all the activities that are installed, you can do so. Once you have that list, if you know you're only going to use a certain percentage, you could delete rows. So you could get everything and then start deleting the rows out to get down to the subset that you are worried about. Now, if you start to do that and you delete activities that are represented in the project you're using, for example, if I were to delete requirement definition and analysis, I would lose the ability to, to use the cost that's associated with those cost objects, or sorry, those activities. So think about that. Obviously, because you have all of the activities from all of the catalogs, you may have some extra. So there actually is another way to do this. If I were to delete these, instead of getting all of them, I can use the next menu item, select project, get activity results. What this is going to do, if we click it, is give us a list of the existing projects. Remember, I'm using the original compare, so I'm going to select the param2. And we're going to get the list of activities from this project, and we're also going to get either cost or labor hours for each of the activities. And that would be selected down in the result type, cost or labor requirement. If you happen to have a project that you've created and saved, but you forgot to calculate, we have a calculate button, so you could select the project, calculate it, and then use it. So in this case, we're going to say cost. We're going to leave it at cost for now. We're going to select our param2 for the UCAS project, and we're going to say OK. And what's going to happen, and you can see the status bar down in the bottom left, this is going, the Excel macro code will go to the TruePlanning project, open it, and we'll get the list of activities for that project. Sorry about that. We'll get the list of activities for that project, and we'll then bring the cost for each of the activities in the project. So you can see here, project planning, project initiation and planning for development, blah, blah, blah. In this case, the order is a bit different. This is actually it basically lists the activities for the cost objects. It finds in order that the cost objects occur in the PBS in TruePlanning. So in this case, we're seeing a system who has its first activity is project initiation and planning and project management. You can see it's basically all the activities for a system, and then it might have all the activities for an assembly, because that's the next cost object in the PBS. Obviously, activities won't be repeated. There are multiple assemblies, multiple cost objects of the same type, hardware component, purchase good, software component. They're not repeated. You get each activity listed once. Now, the costs that you see here, or labor, if it shows in labor, are the sum or the roll-up of all of the occurrences of that activity. So this number here that we have is, let's see if we can do it for all of them. Let's just format these cells so they look a little better. Oops. Sorry, I meant currency. There we go. So these are dollars. And you can see here this $29 million for project initiation and planning covers all of the costs. So there's multiple systems. Actually, there's two. So if you look at the total cost for these systems, you're going to see. So let's just take a look at that real quick. So let's go to results. Let's take a look here. So we're going to say activity type by cost object. We're not going to include children. So if we were to come here, the total here for, oops, I'm sorry, I chose phase. Activity type, there we go. So project initiation planning, 19 million. Here we have 10. So 10 plus 19, 29. So you can see it's a roll-up of the activity cost across the entire project. So we have the roll-ups of the activities for all of the projects. We can spin down here real quick and see. We have it. So the nice thing about using that second option, the select project, get activity result, is it does give you the activities specific to that project. The issue is if you were to use this Excel sheet for different projects, And again, you didn't rerun that piece. Well, you really have to. You really have to rerun that piece because you need to get the values. You really should. Every time you're going to use this Excel sheet or this Excel file, you really have to run the select project. An important note, if I were to go back and reload the activities and use all of the activities from all the catalogs, what you're getting are the catalog-defined activities. And the issue is, what if you've renamed some of your activities? You've gone into the TruePlanning file and renamed your activities. For example, the UCAS has done that. If we look at an assembly, let's see here. I'm sorry, not assembly. If we look at a purchased good, so we come here, we find, okay, detailed. If you look, we have a purchased good development activity, a purchased good operation and support activity. Normally we would have a purchased good production activity, but it's been renamed just to purchased good activity. So it's not different. The activity name is different than what's in the catalog. So we come back to here and we look at the very end. I know where to look. You can see if I were to look through this whole sheet here, I would not find purchase good activity because it's not defined in a catalog. It's something it's a name I've provided in the PBS. So what happens is when I now go to the select project, say okay, again cost, the code is going to retrieve the costs for all of the activities that it finds, and it will also supply activities that it didn't find. So as it runs through the set of activities, it is going to look for ones that weren't already listed. So in this case, we'll see the very end, purchase good activity with a cost. That's because it wasn't an activity that was defined by default by the catalogs. So if you do custom name your activities, you won't lose them. This spreadsheet will take care of that. So I'm going to go back. I like using this view here. It's just a little, for me, in this tutorial, a little cleaner, just because everything is from the project. Okay. Okay. So if you notice, we've got our cost back, $29 million. Okay. So we set up on the A column our custom activities, as we'll call them. Again, they could be really anything you want to map to TruePlanning activities, but we have defined the custom activities. We've also retrieved from TruePlanning for our project our list of activities and their associated rolled up costs. The percentages you see down here represents the mapping. This is where we actually go through and define how we want to get a cost or hours for our custom activities. So we can use as an example development engineering. Okay, what we're saying is that for us, development engineering represents 90% of the project initiation and planning, and 100% of quality assurance management of operation and support, and 100% of development manufacturing, and 100% of development manufacturing, development test, production, and assembly operation and support. So you can see what we're saying is that this particular custom activity is made up of quite a few of our activities. Our activities in TruePlanning are more granular than our WBS in this case. Our WBS is fairly broad. We want to capture cost across multiple TruePlanning activities. Again, this going across in the columns, you pick whatever percentages of the true planning activities you want. If you look downward across this column, you're going to find that it's possible to define as much usage as you want. It's possible to define 100%. It's possible to define less than 100% or more than 100%. And for some people, it's important that they don't allocate or attribute more money in their WBS than true planning is calculated, or less. You want to make sure you've achieved, you split you've used all of your costs. People may or may not want to do that. It really depends on your situation. But in order to help you, we have this validate mapping option. And what happens is after you've obtained your cost, you can use the validate mapping. And what this is going to do is go through and check 3 different criteria. It's going to check to see if you've applied more than 100% to any particular true planning activity. And what that means is that you are increasing the cost of what your true planning has calculated for that. If you were to, for example, say that development engineering used 100% of project initiation and development, or project initiation and planning for development, and it also used 100, and then the production engineering and plan also used 100%, you'd basically be double dipping. You'd be using twice the cost. You'd increase what your custom WBS here, or your custom activities, by $29 million. So we have validation that goes through and will let users know when something like that has happened. So if we come across here, but it may not actually have one. So let's do that again. Everyone remember that this was 10. I'm going to make this 100. Validate mapping. And if you notice, this little red mark popped up. So I hover over it. So it's just a warning built into Excel. And what we're saying here, as you can see, the allocation is greater than 100%. We're using 190%. So if we were to do this, we would actually have a result when we were done that potentially could have a bigger cost than what true planning has calculated. We'll put that back to 10. That's the first kind of validation warning. If we go back, notice the validation is still there even though we changed it. We'll have to rerun that. And it goes away. It's back to 100. So we're worried, we want to let you know if you've gone over 100. You may want to. We don't say you can't. We just want to let you know, provide some mechanism for easily letting you know in case that is something you are considering. Another validation we do is when you allocate cost for an activity, but the activity doesn't have any cost. In this case, the way the model, the project, true planning is set up, requirement definition analysis, it has no cost. That's fine. We're happy with our true planning model. We're letting you know that has, you're expecting to have cost and you're not. Your choice. You may find this as an issue. You can use the validation notes to help you find this. But if you understand that that's acceptable, then you can ignore it. And then you have a third validation warning when you have something that's using less than. So this was 10. We'll delete this. And you can see it was 10 here, now it's 90. So what we're saying here is the allocation is less than 100%. In this case, we're leaving money behind. Production engineering and planning prep won't get the 10% of the $29 million. If we were to use up all the other dollars, we'd leave this 10% of $29 million out. Our custom activities would have a value, total value less than the true planning project cost. Again, you may want to do that. Depends on what you're doing. If for whatever reason your WBS doesn't consider something that we do or TruePlanning or whatever, you can use that. But we want to let you know if that's the case. Again, to get rid of it, once you fixed it, just revalidate. So we've now set up our mapping. This is actually, I've left the percentages as they were for this sample as you'll get this. One of the things you'll have to do is go through for your custom WPS and enter them and then assign the percentages to the TruePlanning activities. As I mentioned before, if you get TruePlanning activities, let's say you're not sure which activities you want to work with, you want a complete list, you could go through and get that complete list. If you want a list of activities specific to a project you're working with, use the next option, which is select project activities, and that will give you that list of activities specific to your project. So we've now set up our relationships. What we need to do now is actually calculate them. So we come to our next menu option, create custom activity results. Again, our status bar, we're quick. We come here, and if you notice, we have calculated for our custom activities, in this case the aircraft CES, we've calculated the values for our elements based on the percentages. So in this case, we've calculated 29 trillion for development engineering, 975 million for production engineering and planning. You can see. So we have the name. This is copied over from the mapping here. Our totals based on the percentages from here. We also have this description field. This description field is a log or basically a way to describe where that value came from. So it's basically listing the set of TruePlanning activities and their percentages that make up that cost. Then we have the values for each fiscal year calculated in TruePlanning. So in this case, it's a fairly far-reaching project. Our system actually comes out all the way to 2041. And we have cost for each of those fiscal years. So now you've got your total and your year breakout with a log that lets you see how you arrive at that cost. Pretty straightforward. If we do this, now notice we're on line 59, we start at line 2, then we do sum B to B60, 55 trillion. Now if you notice, our total in TruePlanning is 57. So what we can see here is that we are not taking all of the cost, whether it's, again, I use the default values, so it's a bit of a happenstance, but if this was truly set up properly, what we would be saying, TruePlanning is calculating costs that you don't want to deal with. We have some activities that doesn't represent a cost you want to have in your custom activities, so it's less. We're not attributing costs. It could be higher. For example, let's say you feel our costs are different in terms of we're under representing some particular activity you have. You may want to make up for it by using more of one of our activities. Again, it depends on your situation and what you want to do. So, great. We've got this data. Now you have the ability to use this. You can hook other sheets to it. You can get this data, copy it out, move it around, develop reporting based on it. Many of our customers like to take this data and then move it to ACIT. So if you notice, we have an ACIT tab, and I've actually already, this was filled in when I should have showed this first, but when we first opened the Excel file, this was empty except for the top row. So what's happened when I clicked the Create Custom Activity Results, all this data was filled in. And what we see filled in is the WBS, or the custom activities. The equation throughput represents the totals that we see here. Okay, so you see, for example, development engineering, 29 trillion. Sorry, oops. New activity, 29 trillion. So you can see it's a copy of the totals. And then what we have is a predefined set of columns in ACID. So I'm going to bring up ACID real quick here. Now, what you're going to see, what you're going to see, thank you. Let's open up this guy. So actually, as you can see, I've already run this. I'm just going to delete this out. Okay. So if you notice, I have in ACID, there's a series. ACID gives you different views. For this demonstration tutorial, I'm going to use the all column view just so we can see all the columns. And you can see, for example, WBS description, CES number, WBS number. You can see that these titles in the Excel sheet map to the other titles or headers in the ACID application. Okay. And we've got our clean sheet here. So that's nice. However, rather than have to copy everything over by hand, everything like that, we give you a nice facility for sending to ACID. So what we're going to do is we're going to browse, see, sessions, very exciting. Okay, so we've now found, and actually, as it turns out, it's this file. You can have the file open when you run the send to ACID from Excel. Quick note, you have to have ACID open. You don't have to have the file you're using open, but you do have to have ACID open for the send to work. So we have ACID open. We actually have the file open. We're good. The other parts of this dialog, ACID row is going to supply a number, and that represents the number where you want to start entering your data. So you might want to enter 1, you might want to enter 20. I use 20 a lot because that was a default that we had. And it gives us some space up here. It really depends on where you want to do it. So we'll say 20. And then overwrite the checkbox defines if you are going to be entering this data into an ACID file that already has data, we have the ability to overwrite, which means that in this case I have around 60 rows as seen here in the Excel sheet for ACID. I'm going to be putting about 60 rows into ACID. And if I start at row 20, obviously I'll go to 80. What do I want to do? If I have anything in between the new 20 and 80, should I overwrite it or should I push down so that everything starting from line 20 in the existing file is now pushed down? In this case, I'll say overwrite. First year, this is calculated by TruePlanning. We're just representing it here. You can change this. The number of years, 33. That's obviously 2009 to 2041 is 33 years. Actually 32, but we have an extra. We use. And so this is setting up a number of years, and this will default in. You can just leave this like this. Then we say OK. Again, we have our status bar at the bottom right. Just going to think about it. And whoosh. If you notice, we now have data in ACID, and we filled in the columns. And if you notice, oops, sorry. In this case, we had appropriations for certain pieces. This is an algorithm inside the application. You can change this after you created this. If you know you have an appropriation number for something, you can add it. Expansion theater, you can basically put in all of this data if you know it. And again, you can see here the year data. If we come over to ACIT, we have all our columns shown. You can see that we have the equation throughput, but we'll also have our fiscal years. So you do get the fiscal year data as well. One of the things that we really wanted to do for ACIT was to provide some information on how we arrived at the cost. So as you see in the result sheet, we have our description, which provides an enumeration of the TruePlanning activities and their percentages that were used to make up our custom activity cost. And that information is carried over into our ACIT data here, and then that data, it's the same, is moved into ACIT. The way you see that is if you come over to our methodology description, you can see you just have a number here. That's really an ID. If you right-click to edit definition, you're going to see that we now have a definition for this particular row, this particular custom activity, and this tells us what TruePlanning activities and the percentages were used to make up this particular throughput cost and the cost for the fiscal years. So we've sent this to ACIT. Again, you can supply values you want to. At this time, the set of columns for ACIT that we handle, it is fixed. Obviously, in the future, if there's other columns that need to be used, we could add them. But for now, the list of columns we have is fixed in the macros just for technical reasons. But if there's something you need that we're not giving you, obviously let us know, and we should be able to help accommodate you. So we've basically defined so for a quick run through, the goal again is to allow us to use TruePlanning to calculate cost and then map to some set of entities that are specific to our domain. In this case, we're using the CES aircraft for the Army. And what we do is we map our own entities, or call them custom activities, against the TruePlanning activities at the top level, breaking them apart, calculating them, getting our cost, or as we said before, you can do labor or hours, and then we were pushing it into ACIT so that users can now deal with it here. Additionally, if ACIT isn't your target, so we have calculated the results, you can now use Excel, copy this, do what you need to do with this. So this is a quick run through of the COM activity mapper. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.